It's time for the main event. It's the Shoeshine.
All right. It's the return of the Shoeshine. I'm your boy Dave from the 408, coming to you from my studio in San Jose, California. Joining me as always is my host all the way from the city of brotherly love, Philly Irish, Drew Evo. Que pasa? What's up, Drew?
What's up, Dave?
All right, man. So glad to have you back, man. I hear there's a heat wave heating up in the city of Philly. How crazy is that?
It's supposed to rain tomorrow.
All right, man. Enough with the weather talk, man. Unless we're talking money Mayweather, that is, because we're taking 2 weeks off. You know, I was kind of surprised that we'd be coming back to talk about what one writer reported as being the biggest casual fight of the year, Drew. The biggest casual fight of the year. Is that a great way to paraphrase this event we just saw last night?
Could be the biggest joke of the year.
Ouch. Let me say hello to everyone who's joining us in the chat. Sonteo Media is already here. Bella Blink, thank you for coming by and hanging out with us. It's been a long 2 weeks away from podcasting and all the great boxing shows, but every once in a while you do need it. Let me say a quick shout out to David Duenas at Leave It in the Ring Radio for helping us out and promoting our show and putting us on that podcast network. David, saludos, and everyone who has supported the Shoeshine. Drew, you said the biggest joke of the year. Let's talk about what went right and what went wrong with the show. And of course, the phone lines are open up to anybody who wants to partake. The phone number is 702-710-3627. Biggest joke of the year or circus or whatever you want to call it. What went right and what went wrong for Floyd Mayweather and Logan Paul? Let's start with what went wrong because it's so easy to do. But Drew, on a Sunday, how did we get to a fight like this pay-per-view on a Sunday?
I don't know, like that. I guess, yeah, people that most likely will stay in on a Sunday night than a Saturday night. So, you know, that's how you think. Wrestling pay-per-views usually do Sunday night pay-per-views, and they used to average a good amount of buys and everything. So, figure people will still stay in Sunday night. Most likely, you probably get most of your profit for families at home.
It's interesting you bring up wrestling, the sport of wrestling, because a lot of people actually were comparing this to, you know, one time Floyd did make an appearance in wrestling. A lot of people could remember that when he wrestled, what was it, The Big Show?
Yeah.
And a lot of wrestling fans may remember this one. Of course, we didn't see these two guys fight, but this was going around Twitter, and I happen to enjoy this. Beetlejuice versus Paul. Another zany guy from Howard Stern Wagpack. Although he was not involved, some people on Twitter think, and maybe they're just the casual fans, that Beetlejuice is the greatest boxer of all time. Beetlejuice used to walk in famously with Paulie Malignaggi. Paulie Malignaggi had a lot to say this weekend, man, about some fighters. I know you want to talk about Deontay Wilder and Tyson Fury's fight coming up, but let's get back to the Floyd Mayweather fight with Logan Paul. Because, first of all, what went wrong? Did Father Time catch up with Floyd Mayweather? Because, to me, he looked a shadow of himself against Conor McGregor. You know, to give it, I thought, oh, wow, he's going to let Conor McGregor go all these rounds. In the heyday of Floyd Mayweather's greatness, I don't think Conor McGregor would have gone 3 rounds. with him. But what did we see yesterday, man, with Floyd, man? Over the hill at 44?
I think like the way it was that Father Time may have actually did catch up with Floyd, but at the same time, I didn't really think he was that much of a threat to have Logan Paul was much of a threat to hurt him, because actually the punches didn't really affect Floyd. And like there's a video that came out today that Floyd actually accidentally knocked out Logan Paul and actually kept him on his feet in order to get the fight to last longer. And I watched it and it looked legit.
Now you might be referencing, I saw that reported today in the New York Post that Floyd held him up. And so quickly, internet rumors and conspiracy said that Floyd had agreed to let him go all 8 rounds. After all, this was an exhibition. And for most people that were just casual fans, they were wondering, some people had asked me, who are you going to bet on? Where can I place a bet? And no, you could not place a bet on this because this was not a sanctioned fight by any means, by any state athletic commission anywhere in the country would allow a guy who walks around at 200 plus to fight Floyd Mayweather, a guy who probably doesn't get much bigger than 152. Weight difference of what, 50 pounds? No, you can't bet on this. This fight was fake. This fight was staged. This fight could have been easily choreographed. I mean, I saw Logan Paul doing the rope-a-dope like what, a week ago or two, to promote this fight. Tell me that the sparring partner wasn't in on every combination, that Logan wasn't in on the combinations being thrown.
That looked like a joke itself. The way it was, like, it's how the sparring partner was terrible, or the dude just knew was told what to do. Just do like this, and I'll do this. But it was a joke.
Yeah, Chicano Prophet is in the room. Hey, thanks, Chicano Prophet, for coming by. Always welcome here in the Shoeshine podcast. Thank you for coming by. But we're trying to understand what Floyd's motivations may have been to take this fight. But he had really nice things to say about Logan Paul after the fight. Were you taken back by the post-fight interviews? Because I was surprised, and I actually thought that Logan Paul handled himself well after that in his post-fight interview.
What did you expect? This is like a robbery of how to make money easy scheme and everything. Like, if Floyd's idea of making smart business decisions like this one is to make easy money by fighting guys that pose no threat to him, that he can make a quick $10 million off of. And this dude posed no threat to him. He was a YouTuber. Like, who in people's right mind would think Logan Paul could actually hurt Floyd Mayweather?
Maybe some casual fans, maybe the casual fans, because again, I did have some people calling me and asking me what I thought about this fight. And, they were interested in why Floyd would take on a guy who was so young. And so they look at Logan Paul's physique and you think, man, this guy's an NFL player or a UFC fighter. He's really big. That leaves a lot of questions, man. And I may not be the only guy who wonder, but listen, there's no VADA testing. There's no testing for any of this. This thing is an exhibition. And recently on that card, this has been bothering me because I've been looking forward to see the return of Jean Pascal from Canada come back. And this was going to be could have potentially have been the best fight of the night to see Jean Pascal back in the ring against Floyd's guy, the Swedish fighter. But he got busted on roids. And you were the first person to tell me about this fight. I think that story kind of got pushed out of the media really quickly. But listen, Jean Pascal fully knew what he was doing, bringing Memo Heredia into his camp as his strength and conditioning coach. The guy has been a cooperating witness for the feds that basically took down Victor Conti. You knew what you were getting yourself into, man. I'm super disappointed in Jean Pascal.
And here's the thing. Did you hear that he failed for a 4th day in suspense too?
No, I just heard about the 3, but I did look up those 3, and those are all what?
They did another test, and they added one more test, one more drug that he did. But here's the thing, man. I'm gonna say this right now. Karma's a real bitch when it comes to John Pascal. That's what you do when you when you ask Bernard Hopkins to take a steroids test and you're preaching clean sports and having a T-shirt saying clean sports when we all know all along that you're the one that actually needs the drug test.
Oh, most definitely, man. I don't know. I'm not going to sit here and accuse Logan Paul of being, people will instantly say, look, you're a hater, that you don't have that physique. But what's really popular in LA is looking good. And there's no shortage of availability for performance enhancing things like growth hormones in Los Angeles or what. If you're making a living off your image, it's very easy to score those type of drugs to help you look and perform your best. Although this was just an exhibition, there was no need for those two to partake in drug testing. Was still very disappointed that Jean Pascal got busted for that. That could have been a great fight.
Well, here's the question that I had to ask everybody that actually got banned for performance enhancing drugs. You know they're gonna probably test you for it. Why the hell would you take it if they know they're gonna spot it right away in your tests? Come on, like they deserve what they get because they should know not to take it because they know it's gonna come up in your system. So I have no sympathy for the people that did it. I have no sympathy for John Pascal. It's possibly a career killer for him. He's possibly gonna get stripped of that WBA super light heavyweight title. And tell you the truth, Bottom Jack's trying to get that first fight reversed. And I doubt it happens. It shouldn't happen because, tell you the truth, you should have. If the test came out clean, you can't really. You have no point. They really should have took a test after that fight or before that fight.
Yeah, you mentioned Badou Jack. This would have been a great rematch. Both of these guys are 35 plus. And Badou Jack made it well known. He fought a guy from Venezuela training out of Colombia that, on paper looked like he was a knockout artist, but had never fought anyone of substance. And so we saw how that went on that last night. It didn't go so well for the guy who never fought in the U.S. But Badou Jack now says he's moving up to cruiserweight. And your thoughts on him moving up to as far as cruiserweight? I mean, this might be a division. A lot of the top fighters have left cruiserweight and are either moving up to heavyweight or they've just retired.
Well, he said he was trying to get a big title between a champion at light heavyweight. If he didn't, he was going to move up to cruiserweight. But him moving up to cruiserweight, I don't know.
Do you even know him about at 30 in his late 30s as a light heavyweight? Can you see Badou Jack, last night's Badou Jack against Arthur Beterbiev, Dimitri Bivol, Joe Smith, the recent new champion?
I can have him beating Joe Smith.
Really, I think actually that would not be a bad fight, and that'd be a credible opponent for Joe Smith. But cruiserweight, I don't know if that's too high of a stretch. But again, he said he felt great. He looked good. He looked refreshed.
He's a former light heavyweight champion.
Okay,
so.
yeah, my bad. I was thinking for a moment he was a 168-pound fighter, but still a lot of big names at light heavyweight. So maybe we will see him back in the ring.
The only problem with Bottom Jack was he's always was on the wrong side of a lot of bad decisions that should have went his way, and they just didn't go his way. And he got robbed a lot. He got robbed in the first Pascal. I thought he beat Pascal last time, so I really thought the fight. Couple fights that he lost, he should have won. But
yeah,
it's just how unlucky he is in his career. And surprisingly, he's still fighting and everything. But a move to cruiserweight might not be a bad idea, but depending on who you have up there at cruiserweight that he can beat, because he's going up another 25 pounds.
Yeah,
to compete in this division.
That's a big jump. Well, it'll be interesting to see how that turns out. Sonteo Media says Luis Arias versus Jarrett Hurd stole the show for me in last night's event. And I have to wholeheartedly agree that was the only fight that to me was worth talking about. Luis Arias is a guy that could comfortably he looked sizably smaller than Jarrett Hurd. Jarrett Hurd moving up, former unified champ at 154, 17-month layoff. And in the middle of that layoff, he said he gained crazy 60 pounds, was way over 200 pounds. and then during COVID lost his father. That's another horrible event in your life, something that can take a lot of time to rebound from. But he said he was ready. Drew, he looked awful last night. The former two unified champ against Luis Arias. It was Luis Arias' night.
It was an upset. It was a big upset and everything. Problem was, Hurd didn't listen to his trainer at all. He told him to jab, follow up, go with your jab, and then follow up. He didn't use the jab a lot. He didn't listen to his trainer, and you don't listen to your trainer most of the time, you're going to lose a fight, and that's why he lost the fight. He went inside, knowing Aussie's a good inside fighter, and he got told many times, fight this dude on the outside, use your jab, and he refused to. He fought the dude's fight, and he lost because of it. So anybody's going to blame himself because he didn't listen to his trainer. He wanted to fight, have a rematch with Charlo, and fortunately, that's gonna be on hold now because he's gonna take a big step backwards now.
Absolutely, and a shout out to that guy Luis Arias because he did listen to his corner, and of course his corner, famous Cuban trainer Salas, who is actually very friendly with Raw Boxing. Our friend Ranger, Ranger's interviewed Salas many times, and he made every adjustment and was listening to his corner, and he stole the show for me. And quite honestly, I'm excited to see what he does even at 154 because he didn't look that big. All right, we got a comment from Chicano Prophet. Hurd was the part of the reason I never bought the 154-pound division is stacked narrative. Before, if I'm correct, didn't Hurd lose his title at 154? Didn't he come up short, or who did he upset? J-Rock? There was a time where it was J-Rock and it was Hurd and it was Charlo in the back.
Yeah.
And Charlo has emerged as the definitive champ at 154. And we're going to get a definitive answer on who the best is because looks like we're going to have that unification match, right?
The undisputed match.
An undisputed, not unification, undisputed. We just had undisputed at 140. So real boxing fans, this was a weekend for the casuals, of course, but that's another great fight to look forward to. Of course, Castaño, he just got that belt, but he's ready to defend it, man. And he knows this is the big fight. This is the fight to make. He's not going to necessarily lose anything in his career, but that huge fight is coming up ahead. And I'm going to talk about some of these huge summer blockbuster fights. Because two of them are headed to Las Vegas, and one of them is getting hot, a lot of hot press. Today, Paulie Malignaggi has come out of the woodworks. He hasn't been commenting a lot. And to be honest, Drew, every time I hear Showtime, the Showtime commentary, they've got that, they brought in the hip-hop guys that have that, hip-hop podcasts or whatnot. And even my wife said, this is, the worst, jankiest impression of the Trilla card. They try to get loose with it. D-Style Boxing, what up? What up, man? Nice to see you in the chat, D-Style, from D-Style Boxing on YouTube and the Roundtable. Thank you for coming by. Drew, Paulie Malignaggi commented that Tyson Fury is going to kick Deontay Wilder's ass. And you just sent me this great interview. Ray Flores of PBC, freelance announcer, he had a lengthy 20 to 30 minute interview, and a lot was said. The funniest thing to me was at the very beginning when he told Ray Flores, you sound like a robot. My wife, I don't want to throw my wife under the bus, but my wife calls Ray Flores Mushmouth. She goes, oh, there's Mushmouth again. But no, Ray Flores is doing great. He's doing great. That interview was, he got some good questions in there, man. I want to know your thoughts on that interview because the whole Glovegate thing doesn't seem to go away. He mentioned one of his excuses, he's still kind of floating it around casually, the mask. That he knew once he took the mask off that something wasn't right. What is going on with that, Drew?
When I talked about that interview, when I talk about him, when I saw an article when they were talking about Malik Scott talking about illegal homicide, and it kind of rubbed me the wrong way because Malik Scott's from Philadelphia, and he was a former boxer that represented Philadelphia. And anybody that knows about what Philadelphia's going through right now, last year they had over 500 homicides, and they were on pace for having almost 600 this year. And he's talking about homicide. Like, really, you should know what families in Philly go through, especially probably yours, especially because you're from Philly and everything. We all probably have victims of homicide and everything, and you're gonna bring up homicide.
Okay.
Like shit like that doesn't, like, that's messed up right there. You don't do that. You don't bring up homicide in boxing, and especially when boxers died fighting in the ring or from injuries from the ring and everything. He brings up homicide, and for that, shame on him. Like, that's a piece of crap move that he's just, with him saying homicide because of what happened in the sport and everything. So he can kiss my ass on that one. But Deontay Wilder, like, when he brought up Glovegate, when he brought up the questions about the glove, and he talking about how can somebody, no glove can bend like that. And that's when I went online and I saw some photos, and I even made a tweet out and tag Deontay Wilder into it. And I said, well, if you're calling Tyson Fury a cheater, then I guess you're calling Errol Spence a cheater too, because the photos right there, you see that his glove bent when he punched Kell Brook in the eye?
Yeah, I do see that. And you gave me 2 points of evidence there, Errol Spence gloves. It looks a lot like the Tyson Fury glove, the position of what happened in their second fight.
I thought gloves can't bend like that. Like, really, that's one right there. And that's two, it's bending like this too. I thought gloves can't bend.
I had some
What the hell does he?
Yeah. I had some real mixed feelings about that interview. In some points, I watched it with my wife, and at some points, I thought he was extremely defensive, and other times I thought maybe he's answered these questions in his mind, and he's healed, not only as he pointed out his body, but healed his mind and will be in a right position to take on Tyson Fury in July, a fight that was not supposed to happen. Of course, they also brought up the Anthony Joshua stuff.
I'm going to explain with Wilder and everything. When you have people that bring up a narrative that back you and say that Tyson Fury cheated and made up all this false crap, and then you're gonna follow it because they backing you up, it's free promotion. And it's getting some of these channels do it. And they bring up and it's a shame because a lot of these channels bring up race into it.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the last, maybe, like, Deontay Wilder, when he first broke out, he wasn't a very outspoken guy. He was just a guy that knocks you out and screams "Bomb Squad" out, and then just tells you like how the fight was, and that's it. But in the last couple of years, he decided to bring his case, like, to have his opinion on racial things, and then he started bringing up the sport of boxing is somewhat racist a little bit. And then you got channels that back it up and everything, and free promotion, and it's boosting these channels up because he's backing them up. And there's really, when it's proven that the glove thing is false, and they keep bringing it up, and they keep saying, because it's if I want race, let me just say something. If you got to bring up race when it comes to debating boxing or talking about boxing, to me, you don't know shit about boxing, because that's most people's rebuttal is to race. And it's a shame how it is today, where people have to do rebuttals and everything and bring race up to it, because tell you the truth, it's not about race in a lot of this stuff. Like, tell you the truth, even Jamil Charlo said, Deontay Wilder lost to Tyson Fury because Fury was the better man. Fury exposed what your flaws and everything. And like really, you just got exposed. You just never took your craft seriously. Like, and now you're taking it seriously, but you waited a year after getting knocked out, and instead of waiting a year,
it's actually going to be
more
than a year at this point. Chicano Prophet says, truth to that statement. Let me just put this back up here on the board because Sonteo Media, this was one of my favorite parts of the interview. Ray Flores thought Jay Diaz was fired. Wilder asked him, where did you hear that? And it got a little heated and contested. Ray said, I don't see him in your training videos. Wilder corrected Ray and said, Jay is still with me, because there was a lot of rumors and speculation around that specific, that Jay Diaz was fired. But he's saying, no, in fact, he's in my camp. And he actually was like, I want to know where you heard that. And he said, I'm not. He was speculating, or he made that conclusion based on training videos or whatnot.
Well, they had him. They were saying that he said he's not with his camp anymore because he's too inexperienced with gloves. Another like BS excuse. Like, come on, man. You're getting on your team, and then they're talking about the spike, the Mark Balin spike in the water thing.
The juju juice. Was it referred to as the juju juice?
Like, come on, like seriously. And he thinks everybody's out to get him. Was out to get him. And, like, I'm sorry, this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. Like, seriously, man. I don't find coming out to the point, but. Is Deontay Wilder embarrassed that he lost to Tyson Fury? Or like really, people you would think be able to hold the L, like take the L proudly and everything, and learn from it. This dude can't. This dude come out of every excuse in the book. He'll be playing basketball. It's like, see, he's playing one-on-one basketball. I got a cramp in my leg. That's why he was able to shoot that last shot, and I let him go with it and everything, man. I just took it easy on him and everything. Like, excuses like that, man. I don't know, man. Like, Deontay Wilder has become more of a joke more and more, man. And I like the guy, but I lost a lot of respect for the dude.
Well, I want to ask you this, Drew, because this fight is coming up in July 24th in Las Vegas. Venue to be still announced. If anybody knows where it's going to be, I think it's a perfect fit for either T-Mobile, which is 18,000 seats, or why not try the Raider Stadium, Allegiant New Stadium. This is a super fight. They've got now, I'm counting, maybe 7 weeks to prepare. The training videos are coming out. I've only seen Fury in vacation videos, enjoying the beach in Miami. Is there a possibility Tyson Fury is going to take this third trilogy fight lightly, man? I'm not seeing him in the gym.
Videos. I saw him in the gym. I saw him doing the gym work.
I know he was preparing for Anthony Joshua. Now he's got to make a quick pivot and get ready to fight Fury.
But they said that. I'm sorry. They were saying that he's even said, I'm turning my phone off. I'm not going on social media for 7 weeks. I'm going into camp. My coaches, my team will keep you updated on my progress. All of that, please do not hit my account up or nothing. I would not answer. That's what he said on Twitter. He said it on his Instagram. I would not be bothered for the next 7 weeks because I got to prepare for Wilder. And the other thing, they say it's going to take place in the Raider Stadium.
Okay.
That was the idea, because they say Elm put a bid down for that stadium to be the spot of that third fight. And tell you the truth, why not have it at a stadium?
Oh, no, it should be. Effective June 1st, Las Vegas is 100% open. Mask restrictions are on basically a volunteer. You can wear the mask if you choose to, or you don't need to provide proof. There's no reason not to stage this at the Raiders Stadium. And quite honestly, it would give a lot of people who can't necessarily afford these high-priced fights, it'd give people an opportunity to buy seats, upper deck type seats, maybe get into a super fight, a once-in-a-lifetime fight, maybe starting at $50. That's something not only I would be interested, but a lot of casual fans, a lot of tourists, a lot of people coming in from California. I mean, I really hope to see this fight in July at Allegiant Stadium.
But I just have a lot of questions when it comes to Deontay Wilder's team. Even though, like, hey, Shelly Finkel said we weren't even contacted about a step aside fee and everything. So they're saying that. So people that are saying that Tyson Fury's people offering 20 million is bogus and everything. But here's the thing that I don't get. And if I was Shelly Finkel, I would have really seriously pushed for Deontay. Let's try to get a step aside fee. Let's try to give us 15 million to step aside so this undisputed fight will happen. So, because tell you the truth, Deontay Wilder is potentially missing out on $50 million making this year. Because if he would have took at least a $15 million step aside fee, you do that. And then you take a tune-up, which I strongly recommend he take a tune-up because of a new trainer, Lee Scott.
No, he's going right for it. He's going right for the trilogy.
Like Charles Martin, you make like 3 to 5 million, so that's like 18 to 20 million you already made. And then whoever wins Fury versus Joshua, you get the shot undisputed. And you're likely going to make between 28 to 30 more million dollars for that fight, which gets you almost the $50 million you made for that year. And like, hey, even if I lose the fight, I still made $50 million this year. And if I'm done, I went out on a big ass check. But he's only making $10 million probably for this fight with Fury. And if he loses or he gets knocked out again, his career is likely over.
Okay. One of my favorite parts of that interview, and I'm hoping to see this from Deontay Wilder. I want to like the American guy. I want to root for our countryman. Someone on Twitter was saying, how do you not root for your own countryman first? This is going to pit a lot of people in the U.S. because Tyson Fury is becoming a household name in the U.S. He's using Las Vegas as a base. And to a lot of people, Deontay Wilder's still the heel. He's still the guy you're not going to root for. He's still the bad guy, right? He's still the guy, the heel in this equation. So I'm curious how much of a dent Tyson Fury has already made on the American public. I think he's doing a good job of it. I think he's doing a fairly good job of it. We have a question for you, though. Santiago Media wants to know, do you know for sure if Shelly Finkel still manages Wilder?
Yes.
All right, man. So that's where we're at with this fight, Drew. That was a really interesting interview with Ray Flores. People can go back and look at that. I think it was IFL TV on YouTube.
I can understand where people are coming from. Why you rooting for the English fighter? Like Deontay Wilder is like the last Mohegan, the last chance for an American undisputed champion right now.
And he had a great run. He had a great run.
Yeah, he had a great run. But the thing is, he should have took the Joshua negotiations more seriously. In my opinion, I really thought that Wilder would have been undisputed if he would have took the Joshua fight already. But the problem was, if you compare resumes and everything, Joshua actually has the best resume out of the 3 heavyweights. But the worst resume is Deontay Wilder, because Deontay Wilder's biggest win is a over 40-year-old Luis Ortiz. And after that, it's all about low B-level, C-level fighters. So I really thought if he would have fought, if Povetkin didn't test positive for PED 5 years ago in Moscow when he was going to fight in Moscow, I really thought he was going to knock Deontay Wilder out in Moscow. So, let's just say, the Deontay Wilder talk could have ended 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm. So Bomb Squad, he says, according to him, it's going to be the resurgence of his career. It's going to be the second part of his career. It's going to be Deontay 2.0, where he's going to emerge victorious from this and go on to potentially reign again for an extended period of time. They asked him about his age, in reference to a lot of heavyweight fighters who fought well into their 40s. He really thinks, he didn't give a definitive answer on how long he expects to fight, but he expects to come out victorious and have a resurgence in his career. Well,
Only question is, if he wins this fight some way, will he actually fight Joshua, or will he go back to fighting nobodies? Because he was very iffy.
He's got no choice but to fight the big names
He
at this
was
stage in his
iffy
career.
he was very iffy when Joshua's name came up and everything. He could have just said right away, my focus is on Tyson Fury. That's what he should have said. But he decided to go a different route. But I don't think he's beating Tyson Fury. There's no way he beats Tyson Fury. He has to knock Tyson Fury out. And Tyson Fury already took his best shot.
I'll tell you what, there's going to be a lot of money put down on this fight. And by the way, a lot of people still figuring out they weren't allowed to bet for the Floyd Mayweather fight. There's going to be a lot of money on this fight in Las Vegas. It's going to take place there. But I want to switch subjects to a lesser known fight on Saturday. And we're talking heavyweights, and we're talking about people coming back. Daniel Dubois, the British fighter. We talked about this fight a lot because British heavyweights, there's a strong interest in the American boxing community with British heavyweights. They seem to have a good chunk of the fighters. He had a major setback as a young undefeated fighter. Joe Joyce, a lot of people didn't think Joe Joyce was going to win that fight. And a lot of people were surprised when Joe Joyce actually busted up his orbital bone. And we just saw like the shattering, not just busting up. I mean, like Saunders was 4 different places, the orbital bones shattered. Daniel Dubois is coming back. What? It's only been less than a year? I mean, it feels like just yesterday he took the setback against Joe Joyce, a really heavy-handed puncher.
And he's coming back, and he came back to a really good situation because the fight was for the interim WBA title.
Which puts him in a great position. I didn't know anything about this guy, Bogdan Dinu, but, I mean, 1 round knockout, he definitely looked good in that 1 round. And hopefully he's not going to have any further eye issues. But, I mean, is that a guy you're going to keep your eye on in the top 10 heavyweight landscape?
Yeah, but, like, here's the thing. If you look at, he's promoted by Queensberry, so he's Joe Joyce. Both of them are actually in great positions right now in the heavyweight division because he's a WBA interim champion. That means he is going to be a mandatory for Joshua. And that, but here's the better part. He's coming off a loss to Joe Joyce, and he's in that position. But Joe Joyce is in a way better position because if he's waiting on to see if Usyk and Joshua happens.
Yeah.
If Usyk and Joshua happens, then Joe Joyce is elevated to mandatory, and he gets the next shot. But if Joshua vacates the WBO title, he's get elevated, and he fights Usyk for the vacated title. So they're both in great position. It seems, that Eddie Hearn doesn't want Joshua to fight Usyk. That he sees something that can give Joshua problems.
Well, we saw that Andy Ruiz had, people thought he was taking a tune-up. Andy Ruiz just had that great fight with Chris Arreola. People said he needed a tune-up, and they thought Chris Arreola was going to be a tune-up fight, and Chris Arreola gave the performance of his life. I just want to correct myself. I did say that was a first-round knockout. It was a second-round knockout over in the UK. But Daniel Dubois, I think he's definitely someone to still keep your eye on in the top 10 heavyweights. And like you said, this landscape, a lot depends on what's going to happen in July. As we just talked about, July 24th for heavyweights. Is still one of the most popular, if not the most popular division in all of boxing. It always captures the attention of the casual fan. And I think, considering what just happened last Sunday, man, I could spend the next 7 weeks talking about this heavyweight fight.
There's so many storylines right now. Like, you got a potential storyline where maybe Joshua might consider vacating all the titles because he's tired of being pushed in the mandatories and everything. But that's what made Joshua taking his mandatories and everything. That's what made Joshua what he is. Mm-hmm. But the question is, will Fury Joshua still generate the big money as if it wasn't undisputed, if no belts were on the line, let's say.
Yeah, are you talking about what it's going to generate? I'm wondering what yesterday generated, because they took a huge risk on putting together Floyd, greatest of all time contender, against a YouTuber, man. I'm curious about that. Listen, we have Sonteo Media just pointing out Joyce is 12-0, but he's 35 years old, which is what Deontay Wilder is. Deontay Wilder also had a very late start. Joyce may have gotten a later start, but he did go to the Olympics. He is an Olympian.
So do the amateur career. Some boxers that are old in their mid-30s that have like maybe 12 or 13 pro fights, it's because they have longer, amateur careers. And tell you the truth, there's nothing wrong with it. There was a guy that was like 38, and he was recently knocked out and everything, hurt his ankle and everything. He was 3-0, but he remained loyal to his country and became an amateur to 37 and turned pro at 38.
I didn't want to put that picture up. Let me see here, because what we're talking about right now, we're talking about the Olympics. And last week, we were kind enough to be joined by In the Ring with Christine, who's doing her show on Wednesday nights. A shout out to her and the ladies that are doing that and just doing a really good job from a female perspective. Is this the right pick I'm trying to put up? Because the Olympic team for guys, I think it's barely going to have 3 guys on this team, right?
Yeah.
And Keyshawn Davis, who we just recently saw, if you're familiar with Keyshawn Davis, I guess I don't have that right picture, but Keyshawn Davis is joining the Olympic team after already turning pro. So that it looks like we're going to have 3 guys on the Olympic team representing the USA. And people are already thinking he's definitely someone to keep your eye out who most likely will medal. And we just literally saw him on the DAZN card. But hey, I'll take it, man. This is the smallest U.S. team we've ever had.
But you know what's messed up? When you have like fighters that Andy Ruiz, he said he wants to fight for Mexico. And Ratio Suimov said, if Andy Ruiz fights for Team Mexico in the Olympics, I'm suspending him indefinitely. From how can you really suspend somebody for fighting in the Olympics when you're not even the promoter?
Yeah.
And everything.
Yeah.
He doesn't hold a belt of yours. So how could you suspend somebody from competing for one of your belts if he decides to fight for Team Mexico?
Yeah. A lot of famous fighters, including the one we're going to see, Teofimo Lopez, the Takeover, had many problems making the U.S.'s Olympic team, whatever, at the moment. If you've read interviews, they speculate there's a lot of politics, not only in making the Olympic team here for the U.S., but Olympic teams all across the world. I know we talked to a fighter from Canada who tried relentlessly to make the Canadian team, even being higher in the rankings, in the amateur rankings, and still couldn't make the Canadian Olympic team. So you've got some of the top fighters that just decided to skip that, go pro. They're already pro. I mean, Xander Zayas, Puerto Rican fighter who we'll be seeing again on the Top Rank card, some of that everybody's really excited about. He elected to forego the Olympic team as well, not even bother with that route. Smallest Olympic team, but again, In the Ring with Christine, who joined us last week. She will be headed off to Colorado to help out the Olympic team. She works in that capacity, and shout out to her. Sonteo Media says Mauricio power tripping again like usual. It always seems that way, man. We always see this WBC news.
That dude is a greedy, greedy man.
So anyways, Drew, it's going to be a short show. We're kind of wrapping this up, but this Saturday, Sonteo Media, speaking of Sonteo Media, we were just at the Virgin in Las Vegas, formerly known as the Hard Rock. Well, Top Rank is going to have multiple fights coming up ahead at the same venue. It's summertime. It's 100 degrees. Shakur Stevenson is back this weekend. Now, I want you to hang on to that thought before you comment, because I was watching the show In the Ring with Christine this past Wednesday, and who showed up to give her some support but is a friend? I'm talking about Jamel Herring, the 130-pound champion from Top Rank, was in the room and answering a lot of questions to people who were in the chat. And one of them was really interesting. Now, I'm going to paraphrase what Jamel Herring said because I haven't seen it on Twitter, but he said, I want to fight Valdez That's the fight I want. But I'm willing to fight Shakur. And to see that in the chat and not see it on Twitter and not see other people pick up on that, I was like, Look, he's willing to fight Shakur Stevenson, who some people think may be the future. He's already been a champ at 126. We're going to see him this Saturday against, his opponent, it really isn't even worth talking about.
I can kick his ass in Mortal Kombat. Just to point that out there right now. Everybody want to tell him that. I can kick his ass in Mortal Kombat.
There's very little promotion. And you know what? So many people tried so hard to go watch Josh Taylor and Ramirez unification fight. There was no tickets to be said unless you wanted to spend a fortune or you were connected. But there's still plenty of tickets available for the Shakur Stevenson fight. I just mentioned that Vegas opened up again. So if you want to go see this fight, Xander Zayas is supposed to be on the card. You get to see a lot of the up-and-coming prospects. Shakur Stevenson, potentially Jamel Herring is willing to fight him if he can't get the Valdez fight. I don't want to see them fight. I think Jamel Herring deserves, after the performance he had against Carl Frampton, I think he deserves a unification shot against Oscar Valdez. I think that's a fight fan, but I don't know. Your thoughts on that?
First of all, if you're planning on going to see this fight or watch this fight, make sure you bring a pillow and blanket with you because you're probably going to get put to sleep by Shakur Stevenson. Xander Zayas, he's probably going to knock somebody out. That's kind of going to be a highlight of the show. But when it comes to Shakur Stevenson, you're going to fall asleep. Trust me, just bring your pillow and blanket. Thank me later for one of you guys. But if I was Jamel Herring, forget Shakur Stevenson. He has not fought nobody. It's a race. You don't gain nothing being Shakur Stevenson. Unification is what you should be thinking right now. And if not, move up.
Drew, we did not talk because we took the Memorial Day weekend off, but we did not. This is another young fighter, WBC champion. But we missed we didn't get to talk about Devin Haney, who I thought was pitching a perfect shutout before everything went wrong and he got exposed. But Shakur Stevenson has a habit, you just mentioned that, of pitching a perfect shutout and not having a problem going the distance. We've seen that repeatedly. Like you're just mentioning, bring a pillow. His fights aren't that exciting, but he's very skilled. Does Shakur Stevenson risk turning into the next Boo Andrade or the next Devin Haney? It'd be nice to see him have a knockout highlight reel. I think he can do it.
I'll be honest, he's gonna have a bad. He keeps doing the way he's doing. He's gonna be a born fighter, and he's not gonna generate much. And until he takes more risk and everything, he's not gonna be that fan-friendly fighter. Yeah.
Santerre Media pointed out that rumor for this Saturday is Brian Lua from Central Valley, California, is fighting on the undercard of Shakur. He's originally from India, but now lives in Madera, California, the Central Valley. The Central Valley of California, man, this is a place where, so many Mexican-American fighters emerge from. These are tough towns. They're towns where there's usually the economy is only based around our agriculture, and some of the best fighters emerge from places like this, whether it's Gabe Flores from Top Rank, who came out of Stockton. You've got Ruben Villa from Salinas you can consider that Central Valley. And even a friend of mine from San Jose, California, Top Rank fighter, Andy El Tiburon Vences is originally from Watsonville. These agricultural towns, they breed some badasses. Correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of fighters emerge from these tough agricultural towns and do really, really well. I hope to see that guy. I've been hearing a lot about Brian Lua. I do hope to see him on this fight. A lot of times they will take on last minute. They'll come in last minute, and sometimes they end up being the highlight of the night, like Drew was just referencing. Prepared to have Xander Zayas be the highlight of that night. But I wanted to point out, if you're a fan of Xander Zayas, he continues to impress, and he's going for, he really wants to be prospect of the year. And if he can continue to knock out his opponents, end up with 4 knockouts this year, he's going to make a viable case to be prospect of the year and really, really put him in a position to be talked about with the hottest contenders at the 147-pound division. I mean, we're talking about guys from Philadelphia. We're talking about all these amazing fighters that are on the brink of being champions. And we can't even forget, like, we were talking about Floyd. We started the show talking about Floyd. But Floyd and Pacquiao, I'm still trying to wrap my head around what happened to Floyd. We saw him defeat Manny Pacquiao, and yet Manny Pacquiao is going to take arguably the hardest challenge in the welterweight division in Las Vegas, and that's the other super fight that I brought up. Drew, I was just saying, we started the show off talking about Floyd, but we're going to have another super fight, and that's a unification fight between Manny Pacquiao and Errol Spence, and I'm still trying to wonder what happened to Floyd. Here we have Manny Pacquiao in his early 40s, going to take on probably the most dangerous opponent that he can find in the welterweight division. No soft touch. Aside from Bud Crawford, that is the hardest fight he could make for himself at welterweight. So what happened to Floyd? I mean, they've asked Floyd today all day, will we at least see you in another exhibition? And he kind of shot down that might be the last of it.
Well, I'm going to be honest. When people want to compare Manny Pacquiao's career to Floyd Mayweather's and who should be above who on the greatest of all time list, people are going to say Floyd because he beat Manny Pacquiao. But I disagree because Manny Pacquiao has taken on more people in their prime. Even when he's close to 40, he took on people in their prime. Floyd, when he became Money Mayweather, the fighters that he fought were exposed at the end of their careers or weren't in their prime whatsoever. And people are always going to compare those careers. And if Manny Pacquiao beats Errol Spence, that puts a big point that Manny Pacquiao should be above Floyd Mayweather because he actually beat the best 147-pound fighter in the division. And a lot of people think Errol Spence is going to destroy Manny Pacquiao. I hear it all the time now. They also said that I also hear one of my coworkers was saying that Pacquiao made them for his fight. It wasn't they didn't give too much credit to Pacquiao's athleticism and everything. But when he fought Floyd's fight, he was nobody. But if you look at it like this, Manny Pacquiao is taking the dangerous fights.
Oh,
Floyd has not taken a dangerous fight maybe since I wouldn't even call the Canelo fight a dangerous fight. I wouldn't even call the Maidana fight a dangerous fight. I thought the dangerous fight, the last time he had a dangerous fight was against Oscar De La Hoya. That was the last dangerous fight he had.
Well, it definitely wasn't Andre Berto.
No, it wasn't Miguel Cotto. Miguel Cotto is a guy that he's 36 when he fought Floyd and everything. But it was a guy that Floyd can easily go around, counter him to a decision. Floyd took guys that he can go counter and get a decision every time he fought, and go 12 rounds and get a decision.
Right, he was a master of picking the opponents at the right time, at the right time in history, at their where they were in their athletic career. He was a master at that. I mean, and to be honest, there's a little bit of that lesson that's being learned by Canelo too, and that it's fair. Canelo's now the cash cow. He can do that. Yeah, he can call the shots, but there's a little bit of that happening, fighting the guys at the right moment in time. And not saying you ducked them, but still saying you fought them. We just talked about the Pacquiao fight. That was marinated way too long. Way too long. But Drew, let's wrap up the show because there's really not that much to talk about, but I'm happy to be back on the air with you. So I just want to get my final thoughts. We'll recap the Shakur Stevenson top-ranked fight next Monday. There's no predictions to be made on that. Let's just have fun and watch some real boxers do their thing. Drew, Floyd Mayweather, if he wants to do one more exhibition, how about fishnets? I'm talking, why not a rematch with Oscar De La Hoya? Isn't he still looking for a dance partner?
Why not Oscar versus Canelo?
Well, I know they're heated up, but I don't think Oscar has a chance in hell to beat Canelo Alvarez. I would not mind seeing Oscar, as he claims to be in the greatest shape of a 48-year-old man's life, taking on Floyd again. And I think if somebody can get that in Floyd's head, now you really want to make money, you really want to bring Vegas to its heels, that's a good rematch. Maybe if we're going to still toy around with the idea of these, celeb fights, YouTube fights, and has-been fights, I mean, that's a great fight. The best ever versus Oscar De La Hoya, says Sonteo Media. That's my 2 cents. I will be looking forward to the Trilla card. I do want to see Lopez, now that he's a unified champ, or almost unified. According to Devin Haney, he's still got one of the straps.
That's going to be my final thought.
All right. Let's switch on to Drew, because I am excited about the Trilla card, because I mentioned Andy Vences. I'm going to try to have him next Monday. Our boy Andy Vences will be fighting a really tough guy from Ireland, and I hope to have him. He's going to be on that Trilla card. He'll be flying to Miami for that. So that's definitely a reason, if you're from the Bay Area, to watch that. And, of course, the Bay Area, Nonito Donaire. Man, what a class act, 38 years old. We also missed that, recapping that. So congratulations to Nonito Donaire. He can hang up the gloves today, and that would be a fantastic way to cement your legacy in history. But here it is. Drew, your final thoughts on the Shoeshine Drew Evo.
I think really people need to really accept the fact Teofimo is not undisputed. Okay? Now, if you want a quick education, Canelo had a franchise belt made because he didn't want to fight Charlo. He wanted to give that belt up, so they made him franchise champion so he can automatically get a fight at the next division up, WBC belt, or fight the middleweight champion, which he did, and for a vacant WBC super middleweight title. Lomachenko had a franchise belt made so he can fight Teofimo instead of fighting Devin Haney. And they gave Devin Haney the belt, the main regular belt. You're not undisputed unless you have all sanctioning bodies regular titles, not franchise title. The franchise title gets you a shot. And people that want to be Teofimo fanboys and want to look at this, and even Reese Sumarov, you're an idiot too, because you're lying to the public. He's not undisputed. He has to fight Devin Haney.
All right, I'm not mad at that. I would like to see that, man.
I'm not a Devin Haney fan, but I'm just saying that he's got to fight Haney for that regular belt. And I'm not talking about him. Haney wanted to give him a hug and everything, like Brokeback Mountain and everything. But
we did miss that subject. Yeah.
End of the day, guys, if you're going to keep saying he's undisputed, you're just lying and you're just claiming yourself to be a fanboy.
Well, let's take on that fight next Monday. We'll talk about that upcoming fight, the Trilla pay-per-view, all these different companies bringing new fights to the attention of the casual fan or the new fans or the hardcore boxing purists, man. I'm Dave from the 408. Remember, if you like the Shoeshine, help us out. You can catch us on Leave It in the Ring Radio, wherever you get your podcasts at Leave It in the Ring Radio. It'll be up this week for further review, but please do us a favor. Do me a favor. Our channel's been up for 6 months, and it's been really slow growth. So if you have a suegro or a primo that doesn't subscribe to our show or hasn't checked it out, send them the pie show. Send them the pie bet. And if they don't like our show,
Jesus Christ, no,
they ain't gonna like us.
Bet.
But send them that show and let them know to hit us up and subscribe. They can always call the show in on Mondays. And with that said, I'll look forward to hanging out with this people and everybody next Monday on the Shoeshine at 7 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. So, all right, Drew, thanks for having me. Thanks for coming on with me tonight, man. I'll see you next Monday.
Thanks for having me. It's your pleasure.
All right, Drew Evo, peace. We out.
Peace.